Good morning, Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. Here I am for a Sunday thought. Last week, I spoke about doubters, how we have doubters and objectors, and I addressed the doubter. And someone asked me to talk about the objector, and I had to really think about that. So, what I did actually was go to my tarot cards and look for the pattern of an objector, the part of us. And I made some notes because it's not something I talk about. Usually, when I'm speaking, no matter what I'm speaking on, I just speak and I don't really have notes too much and stuff like that. But today I am because I want to make sure I have this correct. I'm not a huge, big objector. I don't have a big objector. So it wasn't something I really understood. Doubting I went through a lot in my younger years. And someone did in a comment asking me if I was a doubter. Not really a doubter. But in my early years, I doubted myself because I was not really, I was put down a lot. But that's another story. So, okay. What I found in my tarot as I was looking for what it was, and I'm going to get back into that in a moment, I ended up with 12 symbols that related to what happens when you run doubting energy. The first thing to recognize that if you are an objector to things, that you're in judgment, you have judgment, and you're not open at all to any other suggestions. You will be set on specific ideas or ideals, and that's what you believe, that's what you know at. And then when you run into the opposite or different idea or ideals, it affects your beliefs and judgments and you react. So we could say you're also a reactor, like defensive, strong. And I've got what I had wrote down here was you become defensive, not wanting to hear anything, like had enough of this, not going to listen to anymore, holding firm to your ideas and your ideals. So therefore, you're not communicating as you are not open to really hear. You have your opinion, you have your ideal, and that is it. Now, because you won't listen or discuss, because usually they don't, you shut down. If you have a strong objector, you're going to shut down. You know that, and actually, often I find you can even get angry. Like people get angry. This causes distance, a turning away, and isolating, and basically reflecting on only on other ideas, but. It happens with people and with groups, and I'm going to talk more about that because I'm going to talk through the symbology. The bottom line, an objector is not open. They're defensive. Doesn't mean you're an objector to everything, but you will have, when you have something that's going on, you're going to stand on your line. So I'm going to show you the symbology. First of all, the justice symbol talks about, to me, that when I was looking, I said, okay, what symbology is going to reflect? This was the first thing that came to my mind because of judgment. Even though this, to me, on the whole, has a whole different talk. But when we look at things, that's what I love about the tarot. If we're looking at a specific thing, it can show and reflect how elements can work. So the justice symbol comes up and talks about judgments. We got judgments. And even though there is a symbol that says judgment, it has a whole different belief behind it, which didn't fit into this parameter. Then I put these in sort of categories. Then I got 3 symbols. The Emperor, stubborn. And when we're stubborn, there were 2 other symbols that really reflected that. I'm going to go to actually, there's more than that when I look at down here. Here, the 4 of Cups, where you're sitting and looking at this and ignoring anything else that's being offered. So in other words, we have a closed mind. We close our mind off. And that is also reflected in the 9 of Wands, where this is what I believe. And I have to address this a little bit because over the years and the work I've done, and I have a whole different idea about many things, even where people in metaphysical circles will have a belief about this. My understanding as I grew in the years and studied changed because I was taught. I channeled for people and different ideas would come through that I had to consider myself later. I had to think about that. I was showing things. I did readings where I went all the way back to when you first sprang out as a soul, looking at different planets, different spaces. And so my whole viewpoint changed a great deal. And I had to let go a lot of what I was raised with or what I thought or what I had been taught to change many, many things. But when you get stuck that a certain preset or a certain ideal is what it is, what eventually begins to happen is the devil, where you get stuck. This is it. This is how it works. And we find this a lot with a lot of people. And you know what happens when you get like that, when you get stuck? I mean, I can be rigid sometimes myself, but it's like, but if you get really stuck and you're not willing to listen or consider, this is what happens. The tower. Out of nowhere, something will happen to shift and change your whole perspective. It's like everything that you have built things on will totally fall apart. And the interesting thing is, I want to point out two things. And this is what I love about the symbol. Okay, life comes in and hits us, and we all have situations where this happens. When out of the blue, out comes. But there's two people here that fall. One falls and is holding on to the crown. That's his ideas, and that's what we're talking about today. When you have an idea and a sense, and you're objecting to what anything anybody else says, you're going to hold on to that. But in the symbol, the odds of light, which is the universal way of how to get out of anything, staying on the path, is on the other side, where the person is falling towards them without any crown. He's letting go. See, when things happen to us, we have to let go and look at a bigger picture. I mean, you cannot live this life, I'm going to say for as long as I have, without some things happening that you don't particularly want. And often those things come totally out of the blue. You don't plan for them, you don't think about them, and bang, there they are. And that's a tower experience. So what happens? And then we take a look at what happens. Now remember, this is when you object. This is when you're objecting. When you're making a stance that this is the only way. This is the only way to pray. This is the only way to believe in God. This is the only way. And it has to be this name and not that name or any other name. Like it's in religion in particular, in politics and all those things, we find that rigidity probably more than anywhere. And things are passed down generational as how you are supposed to be. So there's lots of things about that. And then, okay, what happens? You now have your life changing. What happens if you're basically, is you leave basically it talks about leaving what you know and stepping out. But I'm going to put this into the context of being an objector. And you're going to say, to heck with all those guys. They don't know what they're doing. I'm going to go off and do my own thing. I'm going to go because I know that this is the way. And it could be the way for you. Not disputing that. And so you pick up your whatevers, all your beliefs and your attitudes. You might let go of a couple of little things. And you step out into the world. Seven of Swords. And you end up very often like the Five of Pentacles. Out in the snow, nobody there, no one, only a small group of you or whatever are sharing the same ideas. So when we look at this, we look at on the attitudes that in the tarot they have these court cards, which I decided were attitudes to life. Well, first of all, when you are in judgment and you become defensive, this is the symbol that really depicts that. All the others lead up, show, and respect that. But really, this is where it all is there. But there's two attitudes. Unfortunately, they're both swords, which create problems. The page, where you're defensive, and the king, where you're stubborn and set, and very similar to what we almost started out with as the emperor. So we can say to be an objector means you're stuck. Can be. I'm just saying can be because people can change. Stubborn about their beliefs, attitudes, and judgments. You will object to anything that does not fit into your belief system. I've had my belief system poked at many, many times. Sometimes I had to let go certain things that I felt for myself were correct and workable. And and being flexible, I find, is really, really important. But when we spoke about the doubter, that was more inner, like doubting who you are, doubting can you do this, doubting it. But an objector is outside. You're objecting to what others say, others' criticism even, which to me is appropriate. But it's like, listen, if they have a criticism, is there some validity in that or not? If there is no validity, then you just realize that's their judgments. People have judgments even when they are not aware of what's going on. And so what will happen eventually as you grow, as you become more aware, as you become more, and I'm going to talk about more spiritual, and because it is Sunday morning, in the inside here, what happens, you become more tolerant. And you recognize that people will hang on to the belief systems they have if it serves them. And they will only change it when it doesn't serve them anymore. And so I usually I'm already over the time I usually allot myself here, but I wanted to really explain that my tarot is like my book in a way, even though I read many, many other things. It's like everything I ever want to find is there. The people who created this particular deck had spent years, I'm sure, exploring, deciding about life. And it's a lot of people just read it as points of view, but actually it's very psychological. And that's how I am. I'm a psychological reader. If someone say something and I said, I'm a psychological reader, I'll tell you how your life works and what you can do to change it. And yeah, it's interesting. People don't always want that. They want, the magic. I'm not very magical, I don't think, anyway. So I want you to consider where you become the objector. I have at times done that for sure, in my head anyway, because I hear things and I know that from my perspective, my judgment, the person who is speaking is not correct. But they're not there yet. The difference of where I was when I was, say, 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70 is like you hopefully everyone does, grow and realize nothing is absolute. What works for you works for you. And so don't get to, when somebody says something that, comes in, and don't just doubt it. Take a look at it. And ask questions of them. How does that work for them? How does that come into being? I wish you really well on this Sunday, 3rd of December already. Who can believe that? We've had snow here. We're expecting more snow. It's the beginning of the Christmas month. So anyway, I'm going to be back. I've got some notes up here in a moment in the chat section that I'll address, but I'm going to be back again tomorrow night for mental mind treatments. And I hope to see you there then. And then also Wednesday with Norma Talks. So we'll see what I'm going to talk about on Wednesday. Because I'm from the 20th of December, I'm taking the rest of the year to finish getting well, and also to decide what I'm going to do in 2024. Who knows? Maybe nothing more different, but maybe add some new things. Wish you well. And I'm going to that's the talk part completed. So I just wanted to look at this. Little Lamb 08 says, hi, Norma. I say hi back. And then says, how do you think this idea of the objector relates to the narcissism? Also, this sounds like what is happening in our planet with current social divisions. I agree with that. I had to really look at that. Narcissism basically fits that, because you have a specific belief or a perception about who you are, and everyone should bow down to that. That's how I see it when you're narcissistic. Is that like I got it. But the division that's happening, and I've got to watch what I say here sometimes, but how that's being created and is upsetting to me. But at the same time, all we can do as we move more into growth and into the love vibration, and recognize that all peoples have that connection. And if they connect on that love vibration, I think they will all be stronger for it. And then this person makes another. This sounds like my marriage, which ended in 2017. Well, best of your luck. Keep on going, whatever. Yes, it is like we do that. And unfortunately, I've had 2 marriage breaks up. You just have to follow what your own sense of self is, what's needed for you, and not be in a situation that you don't enjoy. Enjoyment, happiness, feeling loved, feeling supported is incredibly important. And when it works both ways, it is just beautiful. When it doesn't, it isn't nice. Wish you well. See you Monday night. Bye now. Lots of love.